Throwing it. You're on.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Master Plan Update Steering Committee meeting. This evening, we'll be conducting committee business. We'll go over our minutes. We'll have some more free-form discussion on what we're looking to achieve over the next couple of years. Some outreach words, our next steps, and then we'll adjourn. And leading into that, John, would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okey-doke. Does anybody have comments on the minutes from our last meeting?
They were too long. I wasn't here, but I tell you that they were very, very or well-spoken, or both.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, Rich, you provide me a segue to ask you a question on the minutes. Just in a couple of short sentences, and I'll explain why I'm going to ask you this, but the quiz has to happen first before I can explain the reason for the quiz. What did you understand our purpose in the first part of the meeting when we talked about the free-form discussion? What do you think we were trying to achieve out of that, since you were not here and just reading the minutes?
I think I saw two facets here. I saw a demographic type of what are the words I'm trying to?
Socioeconomic?
Not economic. It's about how the community wants to, how we think the community wants to look like. And then I saw a more functional element that was, well, we have to deal with all this technical stuff. Where do we want to aim the technical stuff to? So there's two different themes coming out of this. That's what I saw. One has to do with how we live, and the other has to do with the technical aspects of how we get there.
The reason for that quiz, I did receive an inquiry from someone that read the minutes and thought we were all over the map and thought it was important that we funnel our direction, which is true, we should be funneling our direction. But certainly, it was my intention, and hopefully I communicated it well enough to you all that evening, but apparently I didn't say it well enough, and that was to learn about each other. You know, what do we think is important, what do we like, what maybe don't we like at this point? So not so much that that evening was supposed to be an attempt to get us all going in one direction. That was an attempt to find out which direction are we headed off individually at this point, so we can understand each other. And if I didn't communicate that clearly that evening, I apologize to you folks.
That was clear.
No, in fact,
Crystal.
So,
and on top of that, I'd say if at this stage of the game, we appear to be all over the map, terrific, fine. You know, we're brainstorming.
all right, super, and we did. So with that, the thought was, because Mara and I have spoken, is to maybe add a sentence at the beginning of paragraph 2 to explain along those lines as to what my intention was, to maybe help clarify the minutes ready for reading in the future. Is that okay with you all?
You could even say it was our intention.
Even better.
It put the full force of,
So some along the lines of, we opened the meeting, it was our intention to learn about each other, to discover what it is we like about Littleton, where we think we need to go, and then how we'll be working together to accomplish that. Is that a fair sentence or two?
sure.
Very fair.
That work, Maren?
Yep.
Sound okay, Keith? Okay. Okay, so with that amendment to the minutes, I'll take a motion.
Move we accept the minutes, previous meeting,
As amended?
as amended and added.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the minutes as amended from the May 12th meeting. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, unanimous. Thanks. Okay, we talked about continuing the free form, and certainly if any members would be present this evening that were not present at the last meeting, to talk that. But Rich, you sort of, I think, hit on to what we were thinking as we had this little bit of discussion and approving the minutes. So you saw our particular points as expressed in the
Yes.
minutes. So we'd like to offer you the opportunity now to give your thoughts. similarly as to what you like about Littleton, what you see it as, and maybe where you want it to go?
Boy, well, we moved here years ago because it was such a rural community. And, there was a bakery downtown, there was a little movie theater downtown, there was a little apothecary downtown. It had such a small town atmosphere to the town. I realize now that, those days are gone, and they won't be coming back. But we have a downtown area, and we have lots of areas in the town that still have much more of the rural character than most towns around us, and most towns in eastern Massachusetts, frankly. And I'd like to see somehow, if we can craft whatever master plan we come up with, to help us encourage people to build in a direction or change in a direction that continues that nice New England character that we have. I'm not sure how to get there. You can't make people go there. All you can do is in this master plan development committee, all we could do is we come up with a master plan is to set guidelines and maybe with incentives to help steer people towards those guidelines. And disincentives to help people steer people away from other things that we don't want to see. Disincentives could be, more trees or more expensive curbing or something like that, if we don't want to see a certain type of roadway or development. There's ways you can do it.
I'm going to ask you all to comment somewhat on Rich like we did the other evening, and then maybe add or anything. But before I do that, because Keith is going to another meeting, so I wanted to ask, Keith, do you have anything for us tonight, just in case we don't get to you?
I don't, I'm not sure if you had mentioned it or not, but we will have Mark Rassicott from NABC at our meeting 2 weeks from tonight. And we had a chance to brief him last week on what we're looking to get some general guidance from a regional planning agency on how does a community do a master plan. So, which is, they're happy to come and talk to us about.
As Keith noted, you may recall, we spoke that we were going to get in touch with him. Indeed, we did have a teleconference with him last Friday, and we were able to lay out, here's where we're at. Here's some of the thoughts we have in this nascent stages of our process. And then we asked him to come armed with what can he help us prepare going down the road. What should we do to prepare also for his visit? And we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly also.
To that end, I don't know if perhaps you already had this conversation with Mark or not, but I was intending to bring this up in the discussion later on. I'm curious to see how diverse towns' master plans can be or are. I mean, a statute is pretty open-ended on what you choose to put in it, and yet there seems to be almost a formula out there for a lot of communities, and that's fine if you end up there because you want to be there, but I'd be real interested to know whether he can bring anything to the table about, what the variety of approaches that could be taken are.
Okay, I'll see him tomorrow at an NABC meeting in Salem and mention that, but it can be, if done correctly, a master plan should reflect what the community wants.
Right.
And not just what the framework of the statute says. That's our jumping off point.
Right.
Yeah. It's got to work for us, though.
Thanks, Keith.
An example, could I speak? An example of our former master plan was that we didn't want to see any residential development along the 495 corridor, which makes sense because of the noise, because of the traffic and all. But you can't, I don't think you can structure a master plan that tightly. I think there has to be flexibility. I think it was Mike that mentioned flexibility last time. Yeah, I agree.
All right. We'll have further discussion later. But for the moment, anybody want to comment on Rich or add anything from our last meeting? Just your thoughts?
I have one. One of the things not gonna be the grand night for the Knights of Columbus. So we're trying to figure out ways to get the young people in. And
Yeah.
the common theme that I get is community. The younger generation are looking and seeking for a community to belong to. They want to belong to something. And if they don't feel they belong to something, they leave it. They just go to the next thing. And they're going to keep searching until they find something that they haven't, like a connection to. So, as you were saying, the community's changing, but I think it's changing because the new generation coming in don't feel the connection to it. And if they don't feel the connection to it, they're not going to participate.
Oh, you are so right. You are
So-
absolutely so right.
If you want to have that, have it back, you're going to have to change it to something what they seek. And I think they don't connect with our age.
Maybe you're something.
Yeah. But I think you could attest to that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
They look for community in other areas than the way we used to do it. We used to be very, dance halls and
Sock hops?
Huh?
Not that old.
Speakeasies, stuff like that.
Their connection now is through the cell. It's immediate, it's fast, and they're organized very fast through the cell phone. They have connections. It's a different way than we used to do, is connect on the phone or knock on doors or whatever. But for them, it's very fast. And if it doesn't connect, on to the next one. It's a very fast world that they live in. And so if we want to go back to having some kind of community in the town of Littleton, we're just going to accommodate them or they're going to leave.
We have to. We absolutely have to.
And they're finding it in Boston, not out here.
Well, in Boston, you got all the colleges, and you got the nightlife, and you got the, bars and hops and all them, things like that. Some of that's would fit here, and some wouldn't fit here, so we have to be careful on how we craft that into our master plan, that kind of concept. Activities, for instance, if we were to get the bike trail that's in Acton, if we were to get that to connect to here, that would be a really golden thing, I think.
That's one
Not just
thing
for our generation, but for every generation.
Now, the Point is going to have, I think, 3 concert platforms?
Yes, they'll,
See,
Yeah.
that was well-researched, because they wanted to bring the young there, because that could form a form of community with concerts and so forth.
that's right.
Yeah.
So it's open forum.
At the very center of the point is going to, inside, or behind what you see right now, will be a triangular area with, as I understand, 3 fire pits, and an area for that type of
They know that
activity.
if they could bring the young in there and form a community there, then they start shopping there.
That's right, and I was actually talking to Sam Park, the developer of the Point, and he mentioned the focus of the area to be a place where people can go and do something, so it won't be, like Victoria's Secret and all the little shops, to go be a consumer at. It's more like activity-based. You see the movie theater, maybe a rock wall, and like things to go do, and the movie, yeah, I already said that, but he really took a look at, what is the latest thing of how people kind of like to spend their time, and consumerism's kind of going out. You got Amazon.com for that kind of thing, so if we can make it activity-based and with the fire pits and kind of beautiful aesthetically, I thought that was real smart, and I appreciate that as well. We all will.
So we can use Fay Park for concerts, but not, classical music, but something like country music or bluegrass or...
Why not classical?
You?
We're,
Not book of many pages.
But what I'm saying is, we have to be accommodating to the generation coming up if we want to have a community at all.
we are so fortunate. We have one terrific asset, and that's that
Indian Hill.
Indian Hill. And,
But
Whatever we do,
Indian
we-
Hill's a
we-
little bit off limits to a lot of people.
All right, here's what I do. I don't want to get into the rabbit hole too deep on some of this. Keep it a little bit broader for the moment. Because the specific solutions, I don't know that we're quite prepared to do that at this point. I don't want to say it high. But Peter, it looked like you had a little bit of a gleam in your eye a few moments back.
I've been drinking.
That water is strong, I noticed.
No, I haven't been drinking, but water, yes. No, just taking it all in for now, thank you.
Mike?
I've learned a lot from the minutes of the last meeting, and it stimulated me to go further afield and further in. And when I hear your description of what you think young people want, having lived in Cambridge for over 50 years, I feel most of you are full of prune juice. You have no idea what. First of all, they're like tourists.
so
It's seasonal. It's seasonal.
That's going to be a problem, I can tell you.
It's seasonal. It's really seasonal, and every year it's a new. And they keep doing the same things, except they're younger at it, that the older people do every year. It's monotonous. They go to TT the Bears when it was open. They go to this place or that place. Just they grind and find. It's exactly the same. Anyway, getting back to something a little more substantive. I was reminded after hearing comments about we need to be flexible. I try to figure out where we are, that is where Littleton is, and from the description all of you gave, it came as a click, and see if it resonates with you. When Littleton was originally put together, or came together, like other towns, this part of the world was mainly agricultural. And it was a struggle for them. If you look at the history, and you you just sort of squint your eyes and just read some of the accounts, or the historical, they're scattered around, but you can assemble them. It sounds just like our discussions, except it's based on how do we as farmers, as tradesmen get through to the next day, and what kind of a community we have that will support us doing it. So in a certain sense, Littleton to me is starting over, except that we're not doing agriculture anymore. We're in a different world, and that's the problem. And I'm suggesting that instead of straight commerce, is the way we think of ourselves, that maybe we should be really modern and go for a mixture of art you're very close to with Indian Hill. Indian Hill, by the way, does more than classical, and they're probably under-ambitious, and maybe they can be stimulated to be, as it were, the Berkeley or the Tanglewood of the West. Who knows? I don't know what a collaboration with them would look like, or a place like that, but a place that basically brings, shall we say, the next generation that's looking for stimulation and can afford it. Littleton has a certain, shall we say, could have a certain connection with that. The other kind of equivalent to agriculture would obviously be services, high tech, and information. Those are the, shall we say, the coinage of the realm, which is equivalent to the agriculture of the past. So instead of being into farming, we're looking to construct a community or make a plan that will be very attractive to young people who are looking for the elements I just described. And it's not one site, it's many, many. It has to be just not music, classical, whatever it is. It's not a solution, it's a culture. It's a way of looking at the world. And at the moment, there is nothing I can detect except little pockets here and there where Littleton's got it. It just has never been crystallized. And with all due respect to the point, that's the last place that she's going to go to in the end. It's the last place, and anyone younger is going to go there. Because they would like to go to places where they go, which happens to be where their kind of music, whether it's classical, their kind of art, and I mean art, I mean both visual as well as any other kind of art, and also hard science and high tech. Now, all this is a lot for Littleton to take in, because we don't, at the moment, have, in my view, the workforce to act as the kernel for that. So in other words, we can't just simply say, poof, we're going to become this information technology center. What we got going for us is access to transportation, 495, and a halting rail service.
And existing technology companies, we've got more than we think.
Yes, we have them, but their impact on the town is barely visible very often, and for good reason, for many good reasons. So I'm looking at, I use the rubric of economic development as sort of a catch-all for what I'm describing here, but I'm not looking just for businesses. I'm looking for, shall we say, bringing in art of all sorts and commerce of all sorts related to art, and that acts like a draw. Now, we also happen to have another asset that just hit the headlines. We ought to keep it in mind and think of ourselves marketing, and that our public schools have just gotten a very, very good press. And I don't think that opportunity should pass us by. I think that should be bottled, curated, and treasured, and used professionally inside to market the town outside. Come to Littleton to paint. Come to Littleton to play music. Come to Littleton to do IT. This is what I'm suggesting, this is the new agriculture. Now, whether or not you like the fields, the theme I'm trying to express here is that we are the equivalent of the community that Littleton was when this was an agricultural. That was the main industry.
Didn't you also mention agriculture in your commerce, though, as well?
We could mention that. There's nothing that's very attractive to many people.
I think so.
It's very, very
I can't disagree
attractive.
with what you said. I mean, personally, obviously, you guys know technology, arts, and agriculture, that would be the ideal intersection for me, absolutely. I would love that.
And the other part of it is housing, even, and that's another discussion. I've taken up a lot of your valuable time, so thank you very much.
What about open space?
Same idea.
That's what we protect.
And keep in the context too, it's a community.
Yes.
So we talk about certain age demographics, but let's not forget, 0 to 100 plus is what we're really looking for. No one solution fits
That's it.
everything. What we're looking for is something that helps us, congeal, if you will, bring us together for community. Use the schools and the Council on Aging as an example. Once 5 years now, isn't it, 5+ years ago, Mike, where there was a pretty good collaboration going on between the schools and the COA. That impetus sort of, faded away. There's still some things that go on, and you can speak better to it than I can. There's still some very good things that go on. And those are discrete points in time. And our bigger challenge here is at a 30,000-foot level.
Yeah.
Helping, I think Mike encapsulated it best last meeting when he said, it's a set of guidelines is what we're seeking to search for to help the town build. Paul? Any comments?
Not that I want to jump in right now, although just one stray thought. Are we kind of in the open portion of?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. It just occurred to me, while listening to some of the other comments just made, that maybe one thing we ought to do in the information gathering stage is just do an inventory of our community assets as to, and that can mean a lot of different things. It could be things that the municipal town has, or things that just physical and geographical realities give. Business assets we have, non-town, arts or civic things, whatever, and just kind of list out, at some point, so we have a, in one place, things identified that might fit into these integrations. Indian Hill Art already came up, but since that's a private organization, it could have very easily have slipped under the radar, and yet some town functions, whether it be a ball field or something else, the schools, we're obviously going to, incorporate those because they're close at hand and we deal with them on a daily basis. But maybe we ought to take a step back, broader look of everything that the town has in terms of assets. Yeah, like I'd call it an inventory of
Do you
what our
have
assets
anything like
are.
that existing, an inventory of, if you call it the assets of the town, I don't mean, monetary or property assets of the town of Littleton, but like Indian Hill, for example, Paul's talking about, other features that we have in town, whether it's the schools, the addition of public
Somebody
schools.
gathered a list of organizations that are in town once,
Anything
I
like
know
that?
that, but,
I'm sorry, a list of
Nothing on the
businesses.
shelf, but
Yeah.
we could probably put it together pretty.
well, I think, I don't mean to task anybody with that. I think that ought to be a chore of us, because we might start identifying things like, Oak Hill, whatever.
No, I
And
agree with
then,
you 100%.
right next to the fact that we have business acts. And then you start taking a look at it and say, what don't we have that we want, And that's it.
And I would leave it out to, rather than think about necessarily as assets, you could think about it in terms of strengths and weaknesses. Strengths would be assets.
Well, that's
things
where I
that
would end up
contribute.
with it,
But
yeah.
then there'd be other things that would be things that are holding us back as a town, whether it's
Yeah,
a lack
I
of
know.
a particular type of infrastructure, or, a lack of,
that's a great
diversity
place
of
to
business, or
start.
diversity
Yeah.
of culture, whatever it is. And that can lead us to a discussion of, well, how would we shore up our weaknesses, and how do we take advantage of our strengths and assets?
That's helpful.
But
Yeah,
see, our
I see
assets,
that, yep.
our assets don't really stop right at our boundary. I
Right.
mean, we got Kimball Farm, we got the ski area.
Can I mention something that all the things that you guys mentioned has a huge competition. Back at the turn of the century, there was no television, there was no cell phone, there was no internet. today, an individual can be a total island in themselves, and totally isolated for society, be totally entertained. He doesn't have to leave the house.
Don't understand.
And so you could have ball fields, you could have everything constructed in the town to provide the best things, but he's gonna be staying home watching, he's got multiple channels to look at, he's got the internet to chat, he could chat with anybody in the world. He can be totally entertained and not have to leave the house.
I'm gonna,
And you're competing with that.
I'm gonna use this and you'll get an idea of to what I think about some folks that decide they wanna be by themselves. Perfect, that's their call. When I was living,
They're at home watching us right now.
perhaps, when I was in Hawaii,
Yes,
That's a
the
different
indoor man in Hawaii.
when I was in Hawaii, no, you have to hear this. I asked one of my sergeants one day, what are you gonna be doing this weekend? I'm in Hawaii, okay? Asking this question. I'm gonna stay home and read. I said, we live in Hawaii, you're gonna stay home and read? I don't like the sun. Now, that's Florida, the sunshine state, that's the rainbow state on Hawaii, but nevertheless, you get the point. There will be some people who will want to do things differently than what we thought are good ideas, and we'll just have to live with that and not get hung up on it. But you're absolutely right. So some
There,
people
maybe
don't
we
like the
can pull
sun.
them out with like Wi-Fi. We should be Wi-Fi enabled everywhere for free. That'd be my vision. And then they'll come out.
But even for folks who put a big percentage of their life in that, they're going to want a chunk of their life to do something else. And so, part of our chore should be, what is it that they want to do when they actually do leave the house?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what we have to concentrate
Right.
on.
That's interesting, you said that, Melissa, because Cambridge has Wi-Fi for free.
Okay, I'm up.
Right?
Yeah, but who paid for it?
Who
Before we
pays
start
for
talking
it?
about free stuff.
No, it's for free, right?
No, where is this for free?
We need to deal with somebody.
Okay, here's what I'd like to do. Unless anybody wants to add anything to that, I want to
I
use,
think you're getting ready over here, no?
all right, he'll have his chance. He'll always be able to interject, he knows that. So I'd like to use as a segue to get into what we asked Melissa and John to do on some outreach, because hopefully people who are watching us, there's some people who are going to be there, they don't know anything. What do they think they're talking about? Which, I'd be happy for folks to say that, because certainly we're missing the boat on some things. And I'm asking those people, please come see us. Please talk to us. There'll be many other forums as we go through this process, but certainly this evening, as we look out at the massive crowd here today, scan the camera, if you would, Kirby, and show the audience,
I don't think you have that.
so the folks at home who are seeing this
See our audience?
can see the audience that's watching this. Can you do that, Kirby?
After you
Should be the.
This would be, I don't think she
Now,
has.
Keith knows a lot, and he's able to help us considerably.
Maxine.
But we want more than just Keith's input. But thank you, Kirby. Okay, so here's the segue I'd like to use. In between munching on some M&Ms this afternoon, reading an article about the Boston's plan, as they're looking forward for their first redevelopment, or first master plan of sorts, in 50 years for the city of Boston. So at least we got the beat on that part. But I think they're calling it Imagine Boston 2030, I believe it is. And it got me to thinking, catchphrases are important. They don't solve problems, but they gather people. So as we go into your outreach piece, I came up with a couple. Realize they'll probably fail miserably. But for you to start thinking about it also, and then folks certainly in town to also think likewise, what might be that catchphrase as to what we're trying to accomplish over these next couple of years we go forward. So here's the short list I came up with. Don't throw anything at me, please, yet. Day one, Littleton's journey to 2030. Day one, the next 300 years. And then stealing from Boston, imagine Littleton 2030. Envision Littleton 2030. Littleton sojourn to 2030. Littleton in 2030. Littleton, our hometown, in 2030. I picked 2030, we're talking about doing a 10-year master plan. This is 2015, so we're done 2017, give or take. And so that'd be a 13-year period of time, obviously, and not just a 10. But the reason I picked it, first off, it's a round number. It's 10. That makes it easy. And when you really think about what we're going to be doing, the effects will be felt then. We're feeling the effects of the 2002 plan, and it's 13 years later. For good or bad, what was or not accomplished from that plan, and it's 13 years later. So that's my only reason for 2030. There's no other science behind that. Now, that said, certainly discuss anything you like if you want, or we can just let Melissa take off and talk to us about what she and John came up with outreach.
It was team effort. So last time, we took a look at the process that we're going to go through, and it was clear throughout the entire process, it's key to involve the community. And so, as you mentioned, John and I were tasked with figuring out what a community outreach program might look like, and it's really just a skeleton at this moment, and I'd share with you guys at home, but apparently my laptop doesn't have the right hookups to do that. So I'll describe to you what I'm looking at. So we started to think about it by kind of, there's probably a better word, but stakeholder group. What are the clusters of people that we want to engage? And then take it from there and go, how do we want to engage them? And then, of course, maybe a little bit more description on what that might look like and if we've already done that thing or not, the status. So, first of all, there's just a general category of things that we're going to want to do to engage everyone. For instance, one of the first things that in the process that is, I think, really key and stressed to us was a visioning meeting, a community visioning meeting. And that would cover, 1 to 100 plus, like Paul said, that's everybody. It doesn't matter your demographics or anything like that. So there's several things, and we can go in detail, but I'll stay at high level just for a second, and then we can drill down maybe. So there's several different things we think we can do to engage the whole community. And then we started to think about what are the subgroups, sub-stakeholder groups that we need to engage with. Things like different municipal boards or committees, like the planning board or the housing authority, the elderly, businesses, religious community, young families, business developers, the list goes on, realtors, and we started to think about within each of these categories, what are the key points, for instance, religious community, St. Anne's Church meeting with church committee, that might be a good way to talk with them. So we've got a good, so far, about 33 line items here on what we think are the different stakeholders and how we could engage them. And just some thoughts upon that. So that's just a high level of what we're looking at, and we can talk through them all, or whatever you'd like to do, Chair.
What I would like to do is just stress, in your broad categories, you just came up with an example, quick off the top, realizing there's many more organizations within these broad
Yes.
subgroups. So that folks don't think that this was intended as an exclusive list. It's not all inclusive yet.
Absolutely, it's just a first drop, totally open to input, and we can build upon this and, use it to track what we're doing. But I think there's kind of two different ways of communication, right? There's things where we need to tell people what we're doing and communicate out to them, and then there's also ways we have to find to pull information from them. And so, as we went through this, there's both in there. For instance, newsletters and flyers in the town website are great ways to let people know what's happening and when, but it's not really a great way to engage them. So maybe a community event is a better way to engage them. And maybe something we might want to look at is leveraging social media, and you might want to roll your eyes at me at that, but that's a two-way street. That's some way to tell people what's going on, even visual updates, and also they can kind of provide input when they can't be around. So it's something we might want to think about. But yeah,
Are you thinking of both Facebook and Twitter?
well, that's a question for us, and it's even just a question in general.
No, in fact, as Mike was asking the questions, I'm writing down, I actually wrote both of those down also, as to, certainly two of them we understand, as many others that are available. So we need to, and some of this is going to have to be our work, because we can't be putting more burden on town employees. So as we come up with some good ideas, want to understand the good ideas, but to understand that we're also going to have to do some work ourselves on these things. And I think both of them are good to have. Just establishing the page, just establishing the Twitter account would not be enough. We would actually need somebody that would be willing to populate it. Even if it was just after every meeting, you added a blurb as to what it was, from the, at least the initial stage of this. Because otherwise it becomes useless, no one goes and looks at it after
Exactly.
some point. So I think it's good. And we can talk more about that, but let's just keep free-forming for a while on this.
Sure.
Versus, criticizing or critiquing ideas at this point.
There's probably a lot of people in town like me. I'm not on Facebook.
We can get you there.
Definitely get the.
No, let's,
We'll get your Twitter
Jump in
account, and
here.
then you can follow Keith.
Oh, boy.
No, but that's,
That's
that's,
scary.
if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I think that's a segue, on just a reaction I'd like to have to what Melissa and John were doing here. If I were tasked with the same chore, I'd probably do something much the same. Now, reading it, saying, what do I not see here? I look at two conclusions, or two assumptions that are present here, and I'd like to kind of turn them on their head by breaking everything down into these silo subgroups. Who are we leaving out? What happens to people who are not neatly fit into one of those? Young family, oh, I'm not that, boom, I'm out, or I'm not, you see, and I think we
Everyone fits in
give.
the all category.
I know, well, I'll get to that in a moment, but I'm just saying, on two levels, I think we ought to be mindful, even while this is an obvious approach that we should take at some level, but we should be mindful of what we're not accomplishing there. If certain people are not going to appear there, we're giving weight and therefore more voice to those groups that we identify as opposed to those that we don't. And then also, what are we saying about people if we are defining them by where they belong and what organization they're in, rather than letting them self-define who they are, what they want? It's almost like there's assumptions here before we've even asked a question. Secondly, is on the meetings. Now, I know the all community event. What have we seen every time we try to do an all event? People don't come. So rather than, and this
We
is,
tag on to community events that are already there and then put like a booth there.
I don't dispute that, but I think the effort to actually get into every neighborhood is going to require us to get into every neighborhood. And actually, we have to become like, geez, I had a fella come by the house third time in a month. He happened to come by on 2 holidays. Great guy, Jehovah's Witness. It's like, and I know him, but he comes to my door. I'm not interested in what he's selling, but I'm glad he's out there doing it. We kind of have to do that sort of thing. And when I talk about neighborhoods, I mean, you've got a couple listed here. Those that are big enough that they've formed associations are the low-hanging fruit. The neighborhoods that don't have an association are the places we need to get into, and we kind of have to look at the map, and start figuring it out. And then I would think at some point, maybe over the summer or whatever, each of us, is armed to go out with a little, PowerPoint or whatever handout sheet and say, here's some facts we want you to know about the master plan process, and then engage immediately in a brainstorming session with those smaller groups in different neighborhoods and bring it all back to this level. I think we're going to get more direct conversation if we go out there. And thirdly, and this is more of the amen category, is on the social media. Absolutely, because that's where they're already getting their information and already having their conversations. But to wit, with what Rich just said, if he's not on Facebook, the whole notion of social media is that there's 1,000 different platforms. We should be engaged in as many of those as make sense. And that, again, is not going to catch everybody, too. But I know that I use different social media platforms than my younger nieces and nephews do, and then there's, other ones that older folks use. So we need to have a strategy that's comprehensive there. So that's...
And just to reinforce, I do notice that the meetings, especially the planning board, get better attended when it is in someone's backyard, neighborhood.
Yeah, or if you want a full room, just make sure you have something involving dogs on the agenda, then everybody will show up. That used to be a guarantee at town meeting. If you put an article affecting dogs, you would have a packed room. Oh, yeah, plowing and sanding private roads, that would work too.
No, it's funny you say that, because one of the notes I was writing to myself, for everybody in town, at the very least, there's an economic self-interest in all of this, if nothing else. And that's manifested itself in taxes, shopping opportunities, can you buy it in town or not? You have to go someplace, transportation opportunities, and that list becomes rather long also as we start looking at that. So it's not just whether or not, well, I like music, so I'll go to Indian Hill, or I like the arts, I'll go to the Arts Center, or I like other things, I'll go to this locale. The point is, even if you sit at home and only play games, some way, shape, or form, there's economic self-interest that everybody, all 9,000 or so folks in town, should have some sort of interest, or I'd be happy that they'd have an interest.
In order to do the neighborhood, this is maybe too far in the weeds for the moment, but do you envision, Melissa, do you envision going from neighborhood to neighborhood on our part, armed with a uniform or basically almost a script, so that each neighborhood gets treated more or less the same?
I think that'd be smart. I do. I mean, I think we had a similar conversation about that. We all should go in with the same, so we get out of it with the same type of thing, and it's conscious effort as to what we're trying to get
Okay,
at.
so the formulation, the design of that script is not trivial.
Yeah, I
All
think
right?
so.
That's all, so I want to just
Yeah.
get
Mike, you hit on an absolute, perhaps one of the most important thing. That theme, that central message, and that's the point of departure of you as an individual when speaking to other folks in town, add to that. But certainly as a committee and as we try to bring the community consensus together, what's that central message?
Yeah.
So very well done, thank you.
I think that what we should do is maybe a pilot one in the neighborhood, to see what comes up, and then bring it up and say how we're going to structure the questions or how we're going to approach it. The other one is, we have to look very carefully at the demographics of the town, so we can figure out where the similar groups are, or for example, the lake people, the ones that live in cul-de-sacs, the other ones that live in the rental community. Yeah, I'm just saying, different
Just love
communities.
the way you characterized
Yeah.
like people.
Well, that's what we always said growing up. Lake people. You're a lake person, right?
It's impossible to hit everybody in the whole town, you'd be years doing that. But once you get a common theme and the questions become kind of like similar, stop, because you're not going to get any more out of it.
You just raised a good point, and I'd like to discuss this if we would. You said you can't reach everybody in town, it's an impossible feat, or it would take forever. I would like to, and so objectives supposed to be measurable and quantifiable, obviously, and achievable also. That said, I think I'd like to set as an objective, is that we do, and we'll pick the ways to do this, but touch everybody in town. Now, let's not be absurd in the Newton one infant that just came home from Brigham's.
Yeah.
But at some point, we define what it is, and we say, we want to try and reach out and touch every person in that broad group, if you will. So if it's, not 8,000 people in town, the 5 years and older, whatever it is. And I'd rather fail at that objective than not set it and never come close to it. Not a decision for this evening, but certainly a thought. So I'd like to explain, because I think we can. And as I say, if you fail at trying to achieve greatness, you failed at something important, rather than just not even trying. So,
Your slogan or theme of Littleton in 29 or Littleton in 30, whatever it turns out to be, that's very important. It's growing and more important to have that theme.
yeah,
Can I add one to your list?
certainly.
Littleton Forward.
I think that was on there, wasn't it? No?
No, I didn't say Littleton Forward.
I got one for you.
Yes, sir.
Participate or perish.
I am writing that down.
I like it. It's
Sounds
exactly
like-
what you spoke of last week.
Yes, but now we're trying to engage the, I don't want to hit the word parish, I think we're hitting the demographic we don't want to hit. Okay.
Apocalyptic.
Well, look at that way. A lot of people that moved to town in the last 15 years came here from Acton, Concord, Bedford, Burlington. They came from places where they couldn't afford to live where they grew up. Now, I wonder if my kids will ever be able to afford to live in Littleton. Building houses, down the lake area, which I never, growing up, there was never a lake. To me, it was a friend of mine from school. I didn't care where he lived, didn't know where he lived. There was no distinction between one or the other. That's the way I grew up. I guess kids are a little more informed or more self-serving than they were when I was a kid. They'd come over to my house and we'd go snowmobiling and skiing and water skiing and tubing. And that was when we got a tube from down at Leahy's, patched it ourselves, tied a rope around it, damn near got killed when it finally came out of the water. So, we did, a stick and a rock, we had fun. These computers you're talking about, Facebook and iTime or whatever that stuff is, they're babysitting tools. That's what they are. It's because the parents aren't getting engaged. Just go to your room and play with your toy. I don't care, That's pretty much what it is. For you to go out and find something to do, what do you do?
Around here?
You go to New
Well,
New
no,
York.
all right, so where do you go? What do you do? It's not here, what do you do?
Yeah, it is not here, but I still.
What do you do?
I like it around here, so
That's not what I'm asking you.
I'm answering the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I go to my friends' houses. We just hang out at our houses and, have a fire and grill some foods.
We'll get the
Usually
heck
around
out of town.
food. Yeah, I don't often go out of town,
No?
honestly. It's just, how do you get
I do.
back again
You know,
safely?
this is a good opportunity, I believe. We pigeonholed her, I think. The expectation is, she's young, and she's gonna be going out, she's going to Boston, going out dancing, clubbing, or whatever, just because of her age demographic, versus like, really just saying, what do you do? And then find out. So that's.
I'm pretty
as
sure
we go
that's what I
forward-
asked.
No, fair enough. But what I'm saying is.
I wasn't trying to pigeonhole her, and I didn't.
I think the point is that our approach should not be make any assumptions going into the thing, just like you did. No assumptions.
I didn't make that
What?
assumption.
I know you didn't.
All right.
He's agreeing with you.
Very good. I don't want to get pigeonholed.
Well, you're too late for that.
Too late for that, Peter. Be careful, pages, many pages.
I think that if we get a 12th person, it has to be Melissa's age.
I begged friends as well. I will go back for another round of begging. Because I think they want to participate, if they're scared about time commitments.
I asked my son.
Did you?
Yeah. I asked a bunch of parents on, see, I'm also a little, I have children that are 26 down to 14. Michael Crory, I went to school with his mother, and now his son is going to school with mine. That's how far apart I am. What do? As I think about you, I go to my place in Vermont. We also go out back and we go water skiing. I'm lucky enough to live on Mattawanakie,
Yeah.
where you can still boat. When I was a kid, you could on Long Lake. And they put it down to a 30, horsepower, and then they put it down to a, 2-oar power, for crying out loud. So, where does a kid learn how to water ski around here?
You're like,
Yeah. And Mattawanakie gets no financing from the town because it's basically private. The entire lake is almost private access on the Mattawanakie side. Forge Pond side, Westford does put some money into it, so the Mattawanakie Association has to come up with whatever it does. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad deal for us to turn around and teach some kids how to water ski. That's what, when I was a kid, my father brought kids in from the city, friends of his and other kids, and we taught them how to water ski. And that's what Littleton was like. And I know you came here and said Littleton's going to get sucked up. Littleton is different, and I'm still trying to hang on to the old Littleton in some ways. I want you to know, where do you want to be in 5 years? That's what I ask kids that go into business for themselves or they get out of college. Where do you want to be in 5 years? And don't tell me you want to be happy. I want to make a lot of money. Everyone wants to be happy and make money. It has to be believable, obtainable, and measurable. Those are the three things a goal has to be. So I charge us with the same thing. It has to be measurable, it has to be believable, and it has to be obtainable. Now, if we go out and ask the townspeople, where do you want the town to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And what are we going to do to get us there? Or what are we going to do to keep us here with our open spaces, with our great school system? I think Littleton was 6 when I went through high school. We had young teachers, they were aggressive, they were good teachers. And unfortunately, over time, we started to slip a little bit. Now we're coming back. What are we going to do? Hold on to that. That's our,
and that goes right to our strengths list. That feels like kind of the pitch that we need to put together, right? Where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? How do we get there? Here's our assets. How do we protect those? Something.
uh-oh,
I think
Careful the page.
Another item that I think is important is opportunities for our graduating kids from our high school. Right now, they have to go outside of Littleton, but if Littleton had a culture where we can have opportunities here, then they have a sense of belonging to the community.
And that might be, so I was so lucky that when I graduated college, I got scooped up by the technology company, Compaq Computer Corporation on Taylor street, right? And so, I mean, I got hooked, right? I had a great career here. I love this town, and look, I'm still here, and I'm helping now. I really appreciate it. So I
Giving
think,
back.
yeah, exactly. And so I think you're right on. If we can provide that hook right out, it's
But we
gonna
have to
bring us
keep it
back.
affordable for more than just someone who was lucky enough to
You're right.
land a great.
You're absolutely
So,
right.
my other issue is the elderly. And if we can't find a way to keep them here, when they move out, they move out of a three-bedroom house and it's just mom and dad and they're gone, who's going in? Not another, single person, or they're coming in with 2 and 3 kids again. So what's that do? School system starts rising again, right? More kids, more expense, more teachers. So we got to find a way to make it affordable for the elderly to stay, which is part of this thing earlier with the accessory dwellings and that type of thing on the planning board, that went in front of the town last time, and I did a horrible job of presenting it, terrible. But there was a number of people there that didn't want anything to do with it. But because I think, and then, no sooner we do that, we have who's the people, the lady who came before us on the planning board?
Jenny Raitt from MAPC.
Yes, all right? And what'd she say? You need to get into accessory dwellings. You need to have places where people can add on to their houses. Geez, go figure.
What you presented was, in the article, I thought it was right-minded, and that
I did
attempts have been made over the years to do
Right.
something like that, and it shows up at town meeting, gets beat there in a smaller crowd, but I think in retrospect, less to do with your presentation, I think it just, we need to adopt what, as part of this policy, I know the selectmen are leading this effort anyway on having a housing policy, and establish, if that's one of the goals or one of the solutions to one of the problems, then the pitch ought to be out there well in advance of town meeting. We have a housing strategy, because we have housing issues. Here's what they are. Here's what the solutions are. Here's one of them, and that's why it's here in front of you tonight. And I don't think that ramp-up argument took place.
I don't mean for this to take that. That is
That's a
one-
for instance.
Yes, but I mean, to address that particular item. But that is part of this item.
Right.
Because if we can't keep our elderly, and if we can't give a place for our children to come back to and stay and want to, I mean, again, you got a good education. The things that keep people moving and doing things together is sports, without question, gets people moving. It gets them to go someplace. The volleyball, I've been down to the middle school with the kids playing basketball, and the next group comes in, and they're setting up basketball, or they're setting up volleyball nets. I didn't know a single person there. None of them were from Littleton. They're from other places, coming to Littleton to play volleyball. Now, why aren't there Littleton people down there playing volleyball? Well,
Some of them are, some of them are.
But that's a good
Well-
thing, Peter. That's a good.
Well, I know it's a good thing. And playing soccer, I mean, I'd be lucky if I can run from one end to the other, but if there was an old person, I wanted to say old fart, but, I didn't think I should say that on TV. If there was an old person game, I'd have fun getting into it. I love playing with my kids. My daughter was a fantastic player.
Take them out to the court, Mike.
Yeah, I don't go anymore.
Here's
There
a
was a
pitch.
time where I had an over 40 soccer program, and were you in it?
I'm north of that now, sweetheart.
Yeah, I know, but
John.
it worked for a while.
But, yeah, things started hurting and breaking.
Injuries killed it.
Just to pitch, the new basketball courts on 300 King Street are open now. Yeah.
I can't dribble and chew gum, so.
Peter, what you're talking about is a balance in demographics. And if it's all connected, because if you don't have your housing plan set up so that you can keep the elderly and still keep a balance of the young people coming in, and then there's the middle group, the divorce with kids and singles.
You see what they did over there in, there's a quick thing, over in Westford, what's that pond over there? Summer Village, they call it. They only allow people to live there one day less than 6 months a year. They pay a complete year of taxes on those properties over there. They're camps, for the most part. They're very small houses, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. You can sneak a way to get another bath in a loft and stuff like this, but you cannot declare residency in these areas.
That's what they do with a lot of the trailer parks up in coastal Maine too, Wells, that sort of thing, just to keep the trailer parks from generating school children, basically. Yeah.
Now, so there it is. Now we turn around and we take some of these people that are elderly. They're selling their houses for $350,000 and $450,000 and $550,000. And we can find a good place for them to live, elderly housing, for $175,000, $250,000, and they only stay here 6 months out of the year. Now they got their Florida, that's a strange setup over there, because it's just one community that's set up around a lake, which is kind of a very interesting little community as far as I'm concerned. But it's a moneymaker for that town.
All right, this has been a good discussion. If you're all content, at least for this evening, I'd like to get into our next steps and see what we're doing here. To stick with the outreach on next steps, so we begin outreaching immediately, I'm thinking a short article in the Independent following each meeting. So 500 words, with that. 700 is the max that she usually takes. She being Joyce Crane, the editor. But about 500, and then always including the link to the webpage as part of that. So tell folks, here's what we did at the Master Plan Update Steering Committee on May 26th. And so since, we meet on a Tuesday, it'd be Thursday afterwards, so it's, 9 days later that it would appear in the Independent. That's fine, it'd be before the next meeting. Would anybody like to volunteer to at least begin that process? And then maybe we'll take turns and rotate
I
some.
thought you just did.
I'll do it. No,
I
I'll do
thought you
it.
just did.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
All right. So, if you could do that then for this meeting, and then, and are you all content with whoever does write it? It's an encapsulation, probably using the minutes as a resource, whatever. To let that person just submit it, or, because there's no way for us as a board to see it before it would be published.
Yeah, we could review it.
Well, I would offer this. If it is a very strict encapsulation and a very general update on what's going on, then I would like to just submit it and not, just not to waste all of our time, rubber stamping it. If it is going to get into a more
John MacGyver it?
sensitive discussion, the discussion on a decision
Speak a
that's
little
going to
bit,
be
Dan.
made, or, or if I'm quoting somebody, then I think absolutely I'll submit it. So if you just leave it to me for the time being. And I think the first few are going to be very factual, just sort of, because we're not doing anything yet of substance, rightfully so. So it'll just make it easier for all of us. And it's only going to be 500 words, believe me. it's not
You'll
gonna
share
be-
it with us when you submit it anyway, right? So we know what's in it
Absolutely,
before it
yeah,
appears,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Do you think you'd be helped at all if between now and the time you finish submit it, that we actually have the theme slogan? I'm serious. 'Cause I think
Well, he could have that in there, though. It's-
Yeah.
This is.
We're kicking it around, we might get the best idea from the general public,
Yeah.
who knows?
I'd rather us not be the ones who determine it,
Fair, yeah, okay.
at least not without attempting to.
Right.
Look at, when you're talking about slogans, I'm looking at that, 300th, Celebrate Littleton. What a cool slogan that was. How did they come up with that? And it has nothing to do with the fact that it's 300 years. So maybe, maybe, I think there's probably other ideas out there.
All right, we don't need a motion on it. We're all happy that Mike writes it for now, and the ground rules we just laid down.
Yep.
Okay, super, thanks, Mike, appreciate that greatly. Electronic media. Does anybody want to start a Facebook page or a Twitter account?
Oh, kidding.
I had to, I just had to.
What, does he need another laugh tonight? Jeez, I'm lucky I can turn on the cell phone. I'm out.
I have accounts, but I barely use it, because every time I do, I can't leave it. So I waste a lot of
Well,
time.
Mike's out of the running, we're not going to let him do it.
I'm always happy to do it, but I don't want to,
Yeah, I think you should.
yeah,
The only question I have
I won't
is
make it public
Facebook the
until-
appropriate social media venue? I know it's easy in the sense that plenty of people put up Facebook pages, but Rich did have a point, not everybody is a Facebook person. Would a blog with a general URL be more appropriate?
Both, why not both?
Can you Is it easy enough
Oh,
to
you
do
mean like a
both?
website?
Well, in other words, I'm thinking of a coordinated use of media. I
Yeah.
mean, this is just, this is.
Various platforms, same information posted in various platforms.
Let's just
That's
keep
fine, and I do like the fact that Melissa was right. The one thing that is great about Facebook is Facebook users will interact with the page. So as long as we know that, as long as the idea is that we're gonna start with Facebook and keep our social media options open
Yeah.
to reach the broadest audience possible over the course of the process, I'm fine with that.
Here's
You
what,
will probably need a moderator because sometimes it can go off in the
no, absolutely.
left field.
For the moment, closed account.
Yeah.
A closed page.
Absolutely.
And only for us, Keith and Maren, at this point.
Yep.
Until we sort through some other ground rules. One specific one is the rules for a town Facebook page, because we're a town board, so we represent the town of
Yeah.
Littleton. So you hit a very important point about moderator. I don't want anybody calling people idiots on this, but that's a bit of
With
a
the right to
mechanism as how we
delete
go
stuff.
through it. So, yeah.
What if I deserve it?
There's another thing too that might be.
No, even then, no.
If you use something like Google Groups or Yahoo Group, you can put topics in, and then the discussions under the topics, and then you can create new topic or a new.
Okay, so now I'm going to say, who here is on a Google page? Not that you use Google, who here used a Google page?
Have, but I don't currently.
Yeah. The only reason to say that,
The nice thing about it is you keep a linear record of everything that was discussed.
true, of the 10 people that join it.
Yeah.
I know, I apologize, I was actually very critical there.
You don't know it, but he just give you a boot.
Do you know how to set that up? Would you know how to do that?
Well, I did it for the officers on the Knights of Columbus, but I have to teach them how to use it. And I'm trying to learn how to use it myself.
I have no idea how to do that one.
But
It's a
we can-
useful vehicle for internal work, and yet if that's going to be the intent of it, though, then we run immediately afoul of the open meeting law.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if we're going to have a Facebook page, I think PJ, it was correct in saying we should check into what the town's policies are, but that should be, we should be careful that all we're doing is presenting information, and that's about it. Other people can respond to it, we can take that information back to the meeting, but the minute we start using it to
It have to be public.
it can be public, but I'm saying, once we start interacting and deliberating through that, then we're getting into trouble. But I mean,
There are a lot of tools on how to
Yeah.
control Facebook.
Right.
Where something doesn't get published until that moderator you said allows it. So there's techniques and tools available to make that
But the
happen.
moderator has to have administrative privileges
Yeah.
to clean it up.
You know it better than any of us probably
You
on
can-
Facebook, so. But at the very.
I'll just create a shelf for now
right
for us
now,
to start playing.
right,
around
you're
with.
going to want to look
Make
into
the
the
rules.
legal issues
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
Keith or
Sure.
somebody.
Definitely.
Unless you want to bring somebody in who's a specialist in social media and provide some guidelines or some
No,
recommendations.
your point is perfect, and that is we start bringing, because there's somebody in the town of Littleton who is the social media expert.
I'm sure.
Several.
Probably more than one
Yep.
person.
Yeah.
And as we pull those people out of the woodwork, so to speak, and even if it's just that's the only thing they do in this whole process is help us with that, a couple times a week, poof.
Rachel Cerullo, I think I just heard a role for you.
Social media expert, my age.
Sign her up, we got a cult spot.
Works in town.
Okay.
Okay.
I will definitely be looking.
Okay, on June 9th, as Keith mentioned earlier, Mark Rassicot, who's the Director of Land Use Division at MAPC, and we recall that's Metropolitan Area Planning Council. We've used them for numerous activities here in town. One of the more very recent ones completed was the housing plan. And you folks are using them on the, help me, and I apologize, your inclusive zoning bylaw?
Yeah,
Am I hitting it right?
inclusionary zoning.
Inclusionary, thank you.
Yeah.
So, in other words, we're used to working with those folks, which is very good. He's going to come on the 9th, which is our next meeting, and tell us, as we talked about earlier this evening, what he sees is how he can help, opportunities for us to ask questions. Maren will send out the homework assignment, so to make sure we all know what the homework assignment is for that. And I'm not asking you to read every single plan that's been given to us up to this point, or RFP, but at least skim some of them so you get an idea as to how MAPC has helped do some things. Think back how you've done it, see what you like on how they do it, see what you don't like on how they do it, and offer some suggestions on how you've done it in your business or professional life as we go about these sorts of things.
When you're skimming through, make sure that if you see anything, just be sure to cover the scope of work. If there's scope of work in any of the documents he sends us.
What is MAPC?
Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
They're a think tank members bank out of Boston that works for, yeah, lots of cities and towns. They're quasi private, public.
It was created by statute, so it's, and
It's at the very least
Yeah.
quasi-public. And as we recall, Keith, our town administrator, is the vice president of the MAPC. He's the current vice president, he's been nominated.
I think he's vice president of MAGIC, which is the regional subgroup.
Did I mess that up, Maren?
No, is he a MAPC? He was MAGIC, right?
Right.
Okay, so he's the vice president of MAGIC. I apologize, didn't realize he got the promotion.
And
At some point in time, we pay this person from Magic or from MakeBack, right?
depends if how we use them. For right now, Mark coming in to help us out. I anticipate at the very least, I have to have some preliminary discussions, that the MAPC would at the very least help us do the scope. And for that, we would indeed pay them, which provides an excellent segue for budget. Please do think about budget, because we're going to have to come up with one. Some of the things, we know there's $213,000 that's available to be used towards this, but it doesn't all go in one hole.
All right, so we have the vice president of MAPC as our town administrator.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Reap benefits first.
He's on the board, he's not like an employee of them, he's the board that oversees them, right, Maren? Right, correct. Yeah.
No,
It's sort of like if you were on the, or you or Rich were on the Massachusetts Association of Planning Boards, right, on their statewide board or
Yeah.
something.
anyway, that's what we'll be doing on the
I
9th.
think the good way to answer that is Littleton has enjoyed a very good relationship with MAPC. Littleton's gotten more than many other area towns because the close relationship that Keith has with them and bringing people to Littleton.
And here's why I would offer that, so that nobody misconstrues that we've received preferential treatment. Keith knows some good questions to ask, and has been able to get good answers to those questions, and that's why.
Right, and knows to ask the question.
Yeah. What I'd like to do on the following meeting, the 14th, is send an invitation to every single board and committee in town to send a rep to here, to our meeting, and that way we can speak to them where we are in the process, what we've learned up to this point, what MAPC has offered us, what we may request of these various boards and committees that exist in town to part of the outreach, but then some of it, certainly you already has the planning board, but Board of Health is a very big statutory board in town. Their involvement is going to be important as we go through this. The Economic Development Committee has already had a little bit, the Housing Committee, on and on. These are all people, Conservation Committee. These are people who are, at the very least, these are pillars in the overall master plan. These committees represent the pillars of it. So their representation and participation is absolutely requisite in my mind. So I would like to invite, it's the 23rd, so that's
23rd?
23rd of June. And just a rep from each one, so they go back and speak to their boards. And Maren, I'm going to ask if you can help us with that piece. Actually get the invitations out to them. And then if they can't make it, just ask when they may like one of us to come to one of their board meetings to speak to them. And at some point, before too much longer, one or two of us will make an appearance at the planning board. That's televised, so that reaches a demographic, if you will. We'll be doing similarly with the Board of Selectmen, and that reaches a demographic. I'll be asking the school committee also, because that reaches a very different demographic. And some of the other ones that we have representation with. Okay? So those are the next few steps I'd like to see us take. Are you happy with those steps?
Yes.
Any others to add?
Did you exclude, or it's led by the outreach to the public, other than the opening of the Facebook?
No, I'm
Social
not
media.
excluded.
Okay.
If I didn't speak to the words to be sure I'm inclusive for that, my
Okay.
bad. But no, there's there's no intent to exclude any.
No, I mean,
The
we're
out-
not gonna, there's no
The
action
outreach through the
on it.
newspaper is a direct,
Yeah,
attempt.
that's what we're gonna be doing for broad outreach, is the newspaper piece. Okay.
for now.
And then we've got the webpage also on the town website, so we can think about how we want to use it also to post information, in addition to some of the very factual things that Maren has already put on there for us, like those various proposals, for example. The minutes will be there. That said, with the minutes, they're public record even when they're drafts, so when Maren does these draft minutes, they're already public record. It's just not approved by the committee. I'd like to share the
say-
minutes up to this point.
Say post them, and then we'll,
Sure.
if we have to amend them after we approve them, then
But more directly to the point, I'd like Maren to share these with Mark Resicott also, to give him his homework assignment, so he knows where we are at this point. So you gotta go?
Yeah, I gotta go.
All right, thanks.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Okay. Anything else on that?
That's probably all we're ready to do at this point, because I started thinking about that canned statement for the outreach. We've got to get that cooking at some point, probably a little preliminary right now for that. Yeah. Okay, I'm good then.
Are you happy with the direction we're taking up to this point, folks?
Yes.
Are there any course corrections you'd like to see us take?
you know,
Yeah,
we,
I'm gonna go around, because that way I can look people straight in the eye and ask them a question so they go, or no. What course corrections would you like to see? You did this, that's a yes. So which course corrections would you like to see?
Just having fun with you. No, I just think we've talked enough, now we need to start to, not so much as pigeonhole, but start going down the right path here. Just-
John?
I'm happy with the way it's going, and I can't think of anything else to add.
All right. Rich?
you know, I didn't know we could water ski in Littleton. Holy Toledo.
So now we know where to
That's
find them
another-
Saturday.
That's another one of those things.
No, I didn't
I'll
do
bet if you drew a circle around Littleton, and you listed the number of outdoor.
Why don't you
and
go out and
indoor
get started on
activities,
that, turn the circle.
That's, I mean, look at all the things we do. Water ski, ski, I bet you they scuba dive over there too. But, you know, we got the art, we get,
They're sculling over there now, Westford and Littleton have a team together, they're actually doing very well in competition. I see them each morning, sometimes at 5:30 now.
and
They see me too, 'cause
we have our own gun club, we have canoeing. I mean, there's so much we have here. It's just incredible. We have the train station, we've got access to Boston and, you know, all the communities around here, the mountains. Wow.
world is an oyster.
Yeah, I think this is great that we're doing this, to try to preserve some of all of this that we have right now before it just kind of piece falls off here and a piece falls off there.
Yeah. Paul?
I'm more than happy with the direction we're taking. I think I've had ample opportunity personally to throw all my ideas out on the table, and I am very much aware that some of that stuff will be properly
Disposed.
yeah, later on in the process. So I think you're doing a fine job of getting us steered in the right direction.
I echo that.
Mike?
I like it especially since we're now getting in gear for the outreach. I really, so we get to listen.
Maren?
Thank you. Two things. Mark Rasicott, one of the tasks you may want to give him is to help you write the scope of services, or help figure out how to write the scope of services so it's well defined for what you're going to want out of the master plan. And the other is the outreach program. Any planner that you hire will be a trained listener and will be trained in how to ask the questions. If we're not coming up with a good or good enough outreach program, that's who we may want to have help guide that process. So that was it.
Mike?
Is there are two pieces of data that came off the horizon that may be useful. One is, I think, the study of the elder, I think there was a questionnaire sent out for everyone over 50 or 55 I believe that data has
Director
been
of Elder
collected.
Services, yes.
Yeah, and I was just wondering if we use our offices at all to get data share on that.
I've already spoken with Pamela Campbell about that.
Wonderful.
And she's plenty happy to share it. And I'm trying to remember, I think August is what she told me, is when the information becomes available.
Right. And the other thing which I just got, because I asked for it before I went on the committee, is for whatever it's useful, the demographics or distribution of where our high school graduates go after they graduate. And I'm using it strictly for financial analysis, not for not saying anything about the schools, because that's not what says anything about schools.
And thanks for the data bit. I'm going to ask, is that when we speak going forward, that we're able to, I don't need a citation, from, bibliography sort of thing, but that we try to escape using anecdotes. Anecdotes can be useful to make, stress a point, but as we're trying to build the point, it becomes important, I believe, that we're able to say 10% of this, 5% of that, or whatever, that the data should be presented, so that we're presenting data and not opinion as we go forward. Now, you say, well, I think, and that's plenty fine, that's fair, because we all should be thinking about stuff, but we should be formulating our thoughts based on accumulated data that we can share with others, so that we broaden our own base of knowledge also as we take each other's data, look at it, do our own analysis, so to speak. Because oftentimes, and we're all guilty of it, at least I know certainly I am often enough, where you come up with that brilliant idea, how do you substantiate that? Seemed like a good idea. So if you're okay with that, I'd appreciate we do that, please.
That's a great goal. Great goal.
Okay, around the horn before we ask for an adjournment. Anything else, Peter?
Thought we just did that horn.
No, that was, we'll go around the other way. We'll start with Mike, how's that? So you can finish up.
I totally enthused about the idea we're going to use data to back up what we are trying to do here. Fantastic, great.
Anything else you want to cover tonight?
Thank you.
Paul?
Nope.
Rich?
This is very interesting
Say no and keep moving.
to me.
John?
I thought it was pretty cool.
All right. Peter? Woo-hoo! Okay, folks, you're watching and you can see the audience. It's now only Maren. Keith had to leave us.
Show up, come join us.
Please do. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjune.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, move to seconded.
Yeah, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, unanimous.
Nobody wants to
Thanks.
stay for longer?